Hi guys, the consequences of Brexit are coming back to bite the DUP on the behind once again. So the previous government brought in a ridiculous measure regarding labelling in order to satisfy the Unionists who saw less and less trade taking place between GB and Northern Ireland. Following consultation from businesses in Great Britain, it seems the new government has dropped the idea as it's a waste of time and money, especially at a time when resources are tight. Sammy Wilson from the DUP raised this point in the House of Commons and challenged the government over what he sees as a U-turn.
Sammy Wilson.
The result of the Northern Ireland Protocol signed by the previous government has been to create an economic border between Northern Ireland and Great Britain, and also the imposition of EU law, which has created a problem for the supply of goods to Northern Ireland. The Labour Party, when in opposition, supported the idea of food labelling as a way of avoiding an interruption of supply of food goods from GB to Northern Ireland. Why has the government now reneged on a promise which it supported in opposition, and what will be the trigger for this imposition if it's needed?
Well, the consultation on UK-wide labelling led the industry to say this will impose huge cost on us and therefore cost on consumers, raising the price of goods. The purpose is to ensure that goods are not delisted in Northern Ireland. That is why we are going to take the power to ensure that if there is any evidence that that is happening, then the labelling requirements that were set out in Safeguarding the Union can be applied, including on individual products on a sectoral basis.
Okay, so what is the problem here? I'll try and explain it as simply as I can because it is quite complicated. So when the UK left the European Union, Northern Ireland remained part of the single market when it came to goods. Now, businesses in GB who wanted to continue to sell into Northern Ireland risked having their goods checked at the border. Now, this of course created delays and it added to cost. So many businesses in GB decided, look, we're not going to sell into Northern Ireland. It's not worth it. There's too much hassle. So in order to get round the problem, because the Unionists in Northern Ireland were complaining about this, because businesses in Northern Ireland were saying, look, we're being cut off by businesses in GB. They're no longer selling to us. We have to source from the EU, for example. We have to source from the Republic of Ireland or the EU because we're part of the single market now. So a solution was to force businesses in GB to label goods going to Northern Ireland as not for sale in the EU. So it would reduce the chance of them finding their way into the Republic of Ireland or the rest of the EU. Now, this seemed okay on the surface. It was an extra cost for businesses, and of course, this is something that they didn't want. But there were certain businesses in GB who would not be selling to Northern Ireland, had no intention to sell to Northern Ireland, and they were forced to take on this cost as well. So the government has done a consultation with businesses, and the response has been, we don't want this. Now, the Northern Ireland Secretary of State here has said, well, if businesses are delisting Northern Ireland, we're going to look into that, and we may punish them in some way by forcing them to introduce this measure. But Northern Ireland has been delisted for many businesses in GB for a long time, long before Brexit, because Northern Ireland is across the sea. So shipping to Northern Ireland is more expensive than shipping to Scotland or shipping to Wales or shipping to other parts of England. So many businesses have refused to ship to Northern Ireland anyway, nothing related to Brexit. They have decided it's just too expensive, we're not going to ship to Northern Ireland. So how are you going to decide which businesses are delisting Northern Ireland because of Brexit, because of this EU labelling, or not for sale in EU labelling, or because they just don't want to take on this extra cost? I think it's going to be very difficult. So how is this damaging the DUP? Well, the DUP thought they won something by getting this labelling, forcing businesses in GB to take on an extra Brexit cost so that they would continue to ship into Northern Ireland. Well, many of them are not doing that anymore. And it doesn't make any sense for the British government to force these companies to take on this extra cost when in many cases they can't justify it. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.